Welcome to a brief introduction of the sequence events of the first three chapters of John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. Steinbeck's story begins as two characters get off a bus 4 miles south of where they actually needed to end up. This sets the two gentlemen back from beginning a job that they've recently gotten on a farm near Soledad, California. The year is 1936, in the heart of the Depression, and these two gentlemen have just lost a job in the northern town of Weed. The two men I speak of, on the left is Lenny Small, a tall, large, and strong man, but of slow mind. To his right is George Milton, a small, wiry man that is of sharp mind, but has a significant weakness in that he has to care for a man that often makes his life problematic. When we meet the two characters, George is furious with Lenny for the number of times he's gotten the two of them in trouble and for the consistency with which Lenny forgets things. Because the two have had to walk the 4 miles the rest of the way to the farm, it's too late for them to arrive that night, because George believes it would be better for the boss to meet Lenny after he's seen him work, rather than hear him speak before he knows what kind of a worker Lenny is. So the two arrive at a makeshift camp for weary travelers. It is slowly revealed to the reader that Lenny has a mental handicap. He's slow, and in fact, we first begin to realize it when he drinks heartily, as though he were a child, from scummy water. And George warns him, you ought not drink from water that doesn't move. Then we come to find out that Lenny has something in his pocket. And we soon realize as the reader that Lenny has a mouse in his pocket, a dead mouse. Lenny likes to pet soft things. George and Lenny fight over this dead mouse, but in the end, George wins out and Lenny has to get rid of the dead mouse. But from this story, we come to find out over dinner that night, as they're eating beans, it's revealed that the two of them have an American dream, and realize Lenny and George are not alike other people of this time. They have each other. This was a period of extreme loneliness, but the two of them have the companionship of each other and a shared vision for their future. They want to live off the fat of the land. They want to own their own farm. And more importantly, in terms of Lenny, he wants to be able to tend the rabbits. Again, he loves to pet soft things. The next morning, the two gentlemen get up and head for the ranch. And it's here that we meet many of the characters that shape the rest of the story. For example, the two men arrive and we meet Candy. Candy is a one-handed man that has an old sheep herding dog that doesn't provide a whole lot of usefulness to the ranch. We also meet the boss. We meet Curly, the boss's son. And we also meet an important character by the name of Slim. Then, the two gentlemen actually get to work, and they buck barley. And what's interesting is you do begin to see, through the description of Lenny's work, how strong and hardworking he is. He can take directions despite the fact that he can't think very well. After a long days of work, it's revealed that Candy has a dog who is not in very good shape. And in fact, the gentlemen in the bunkhouse decide that this dog smells too badly and its life is not worth living. And so Carlson, one of our characters, Carlson really wants to shoot Candy's dog for him. And in fact, Candy fights this a little bit, but because Slim agrees with Carlson, and he's somewhat the leader of the ranch, it's decided that Carlson is going to take his Luger and shoot Candy's dog in the back of the head. After the shooting of Candy's dog, he reveals that he feels just as useless as the other men on the ranch viewed his dog. He only has one hand, and he feels like his time on the ranch is coming to a close. But Candy has a significant strength. Because of the loss of his hand, he has money. And the story is revealed that he would be willing to sign over the money and his lease in the land if George and Lenny, in buying their own farm, would consider having him become the farm swamper. So Lenny is extremely excited over this idea because they're finally having some concrete plans for owning their own farm. Lenny can't wipe the smile off his face because he knows he's that much closer to tending the rabbits. But Curly, our protagonist, a small, angry man who's constantly worried about where his wife is, takes exception to the fact that Lenny continues to laugh as he asks the others where his wife is. Curly thinks he's laughing at him, but the reality is Lenny's just smiling about tending the rabbits. The end result is that Curly, with his small man syndrome, tries to take on Lenny in a fight. Curly fancies himself as a bit of a boxer. But this was foreshadowed earlier in Chapter 2 when George told Candy Curly ought not mess with Lenny. When finally George gives Lenny the permission to defend himself, Lenny catches one of Curly's punches and crushes his hand, obliterating all of the bones. Now, you would think that this, crushing the hand of the boss's son, would get Lenny and George fired. But in fact, Slim steps in and sets up an agreement between Curly and Lenny and George that says, look, we won't say how this happened. We won't say that you were beaten up by Lenny or took on a fight with a man who clearly has some mental handicaps if you say that your hand was caught in a machine. Curly agrees to save face, and that concludes Chapter 3.